right now on 5 on Your Side at 10.
A deadly double shooting.
I thought he was in the house playing a video game. I had to go bang on the door like, hey, baby, I think they outside shooting.
The reaction from neighbors and the man who tried to save them. Remembering the Holocaust.
My parents were deported from River Salters to Auschwitz around August 10th, 1942, and were then murdered.
The tribute to those who went through the unthinkable.
Another week of severe weather, and while the strongest risk is out west, we're starting to creep into that. Why the timing of this severe weather risk matters as we track multiple chances for severe weather this week.
It's back tonight. Showers and storms just now making their way into our area, a harbinger of things to come. Our next weather alert day is less than 48 hours away. Good evening. I'm Mike Bush. This will be a busy week in the Weather First Weather Center with rain and storms in our forecast, and some of them could be severe. So let's get right to meteorologist Gary Frank with that Weather First forecast.
Yeah, good evening, Mike. This is not a night where we have to go to bed and worry about storms, but I can't say the same 24 hours from now because we're going to be dealing with that severe weather that I mentioned where that highest risk is in Oklahoma and southern Kansas. Right now, light rain settling in Arnold, and a lot of cameras are going to be showing that as you see this light rain, and the leading edge of it, specifically in the metro east and southern Illinois, is where you're seeing the most moderate rain. I know that's probably the last thing a lot of you want to see is any more rain, but that is not going to amount to much. Most of the heavy rain stays out of here, but we're still going to see some moderate bands that have settled in Sparta, and they're working their way up closer to I-64 and really closer to downtown St. Louis and Belleville, New Athens right now. Redbud and Sparta, you'll see that it's a little bit wet, but the wind is calm. Temperatures at 68 right now. It's out of the east at 8 miles an hour, and it's lightly raining. Tonight, we'll see a few showers and a rumble of thunder or two. But over the week ahead, we've got lots of dry time. That includes tomorrow. That includes Tuesday. But there are also lots more rain chances, including severe weather threats on those alert days. We'll talk about what that means for us and the day I'm pinpointing out of Tuesday and Wednesday to expect the most likely severe weather.
A man is in custody tonight after the deaths of a brother and sister in North County. St. Louis County Police continue to investigate at this hour. And 5 on Your Side's Laura Barczewski talked with a neighbor who tried to help today. Laura?
Mike, one of the neighbors tells me he ran straight into danger when he heard the shooting happening outside his house. He did everything he could to try and help the 2 victims. Just after 9:30 Sunday morning, 2 neighbors on Wardak Avenue were going through their morning routines when they heard several shots fired outside their homes. Both of them wanted to remain anonymous for their own safety.
I was in the kitchen cooking breakfast for my daughter, and we just heard gunshots. So I told my baby to get down because I didn't know what was going on.
I was down in the basement getting ready for the morning when I heard a handful of shots, and I ran upstairs and seeing the suspect running down the street.
That's when one of those neighbors says without giving it a second thought, he ran out to help.
So I ran upstairs, grabbed my gun, and went outside to make sure that the lady that was screaming, that everything was okay.
Then he realized there was a man who'd been shot lying in the street just steps from his door.
So I ran back inside my house, grabbed a belt and towels for a tourniquet so I could try to render aid, but unfortunately, the victim had perished.
Halfway down the block, he found another victim, a woman who'd been shot and tried to help her, but she also died at the scene. He later learned the victims were brother and sister. When police arrived, they actually thought he was a suspect because a neighbor saw him with a gun when they called 911, but he was able to explain what happened and actually gave them a description of the suspect.
We had heard from the detectives. I believe the guy had ordered an Uber. He did it and then had an Uber ready for him so he could get out of here. They saw him getting into a car and they thought it was weird, so they pulled that car over and stopped the Uber drivers.
Police say they arrested the man and recovered the gun. While that's a relief to both neighbors, it's going to be tough to sleep at night.
We don't really have too much happen over here, so to see this happen is a tragedy.
Hold your loved ones tight.
Police have not released the names of the victims or the suspect and believe this all started because of some sort of argument. The investigation is ongoing.
And new tonight, a man is dead after a shooting this morning in North St. Louis City. Officers found a man shot multiple times on North 20th Street near Palm after getting calls a little after 5. He was taken to the hospital but died shortly after. Homicide detectives are investigating, and we're working to get more information for you. We'll pass it along as soon as we do. Colleges and universities across the U.S. held graduations this weekend, while some were clashing with campus protests calling for a free Palestine. Nearly 24 people were arrested at the University of Virginia, another 70 at the Art Institute of Chicago. At the University of Michigan, many were carried out of the graduation ceremony on Saturday, and USC canceled their main commencement ceremony, citing what the school called security concerns.
We've seen a lot of inconsistency by the university in terms of their response police-wise. The university was committed to holding commencement, that while it supported free speech, it also had limits.
St. Louis saw its own collision between demonstrators and graduations yesterday at SIUE. There, dozens rallied peacefully to support a WashU professor put in the hospital after another protest the weekend prior. This is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and we do have a couple of stories for you tonight. It's obviously a challenging time for Jewish people in the U.S. in the wake of all the pro-Palestinian protests, but today was a reminder of the 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust. And as Annie Krall reports, some say remembering history is more important than ever.
St. Louis is home to about 900 Holocaust survivors, many like Liesel Aschenbrand, sharing their stories Sunday through family members such as Dee Herman, saying the 92-year-old still has nightmares.
Rats, mice, dirt, and hunger were constant companions. In early 1941, we were transported to another camp called Rivensaltis.
A concentration camp like the one Vera Emmons' mother survived when she was taken from Berlin, named Vera after the sister her mother lost, spending 2 years in multiple camps around 1943. Before she passed, Gerda Notman-Luner used to say she survived because of luck and being skilled with electronics, making it to America when she was 18.
She was quiet, not because she didn't have any opinions, but she was not one for small talk. She was very smart, very good at languages.
The St. Louis Holocaust Museum spreading awareness at the gathering and coming together after the pro-Palestinian protests this last week at WashU.
The devastation of the Israelis, the devastation of the Palestinians, it's not good for anybody. The museum is a resource for remembering that history. And so when you hear some of these chants, you wonder, are people paying attention to how anti-Semitism took root years ago, leading up to the Holocaust?
After speaking with St. Louis Holocaust Museum leaders, they say one of the most crucial parts of this commemoration is still teaching lessons that need to be learned, especially when talking about the Israeli hostages.
We want to make sure that people who are held against their will, and in horrible situations, are released. October 7th was the largest massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust, and so when we say never again, it very clearly has echoes today.
Reporting in Creve Coeur, Annie Krall, 5 on your side.
And that was Annie Krall reporting. We have to remember that Holocaust Remembrance Day is not just about Jewish people. Millions of people who are not Jewish were also killed by the Nazis during the Holocaust, including the physically and mentally disabled.
Coming up, a Holocaust survivor's story.
In those days, anti-Semitism in Europe was terrible, and nobody can understand how bad it was unless you lived it.
His incredible journey of resilience and the fight against hate. While they aren't moving on, they're still going on.
You have to go on. You have to know every day you have to get up.
The message from a mom who's lost her children.
While we have showers overnight, it's this system in the Great Basin that's most likely responsible for our severe weather threat this week. What it does for us and the most significant severe weather we're impacted by.
Making a Difference is sponsored by Midwest Bank Center.
Tonight marks the start of Holocaust Remembrance Day. The observance carries a heavier weight than usual for many Jews as a war in Israel and Gaza continues. We heard from protesters and from some Jewish students who have expressed their fear and insecurity. But in tonight's Making a Difference report, the perspective of a Holocaust survivor and the lessons his story holds for our current times.
As tensions surrounding the war in Gaza reverberate across our college campuses,
This is pictured again in Bergen-Belsen.
the harrowing tale of Holocaust survivor Oscar Jacob emerges from the shadows of history.
The level of anti-Semitism that we're experiencing now is almost, not quite, but almost on the level of the European anti-Semitism that I experienced as a 13-year-old in Hungary and Romania.
Oscar's childhood in the small town of Dobra in Romania was marred by isolation and prejudice, leaving an indelible mark on his young life.
It was very hard for me to deal with it. I used to go home from school and complain to my mom. I used to cry that I was so alone because nobody would play with me.
Then on May 4th, 1944, Oscar's world was shattered when two policemen knocked on his family's door.
And they said, get dressed and you got 2 hours to pack and we will have to leave.
A few weeks later, his family was forced onto a train headed to the Nazi death camp Auschwitz. Upon arrival, a fellow prisoner advised the 13-year-old to lie about his age.
He says, tell them you're 16, 17-year-old. And that saved my life. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here talking to you, because 15-year-old and under, we all ended up in the gas chamber.
Nazi guards whisked him away, and he never saw his mother, brother, sister, or his grandparents again. His nightmare also took him to the slave labor camp at Nordhausen-Dora and later to Bergen-Belsen, where the horrors of the Holocaust were once again laid bare before his young eyes.
We arrived in Bergen-Belsen and we saw nothing but dead bodies all over. And we were given a place in a barrack. And you went into the barrack and there was dead bodies there too.
Faced with starvation, he and his cousin resorted to digging up a buried horse's hoof, cooking it for days to survive. After liberation, Oscar started anew in the United States, working as a kosher butcher in New York before moving to St. Louis, where he eventually established his own plumbing business. The moment he arrived in the U.S. remains a beacon of hope in his memory.
I saw the Statue of Liberty and we were dancing and we were so happy to see the Statue of Liberty.
As the protests continue across the country, Oscar Jacobs' journey serves as a poignant reminder of the dangers of prejudice and the importance of standing united against hatred of all forms.
I am shocked what's going on, and hopefully that this will end okay. We were helpless and being slaughtered.
Remembering the past and aspiring for a future where the darkness of hate yields to the light of understanding.
And on May 16th at 6 p.m. at the Holocaust Museum, a unique program with Oscar as he has a conversation with Suzanne Rico, who is a descendant of a Nazi engineer. She actually called him to apologize. More about that in the days to come. And as concerns about anti-Semitism grow, a leader with the Anti-Defamation League spoke with our political editor, Mark Maxwell, on this week's episode of The Record. Many involved in these demonstrations are protesting the growing humanitarian crisis and rising death toll in Gaza, but the ADL is concerned with how many are also sharing anti-Semitic rhetoric.
I'll cite a Jewish student who supports the Palestinian rights. We met at Wash U this week, and she made the argument that Jewish people and Palestinian people can live side by side in harmony.
I think to a large extent they have before. Obviously the situation is complex right now, and the idea that one state would subsume another is really, that is anti-Zionism as opposed to being critical of the Israeli government, which everyone has a right to do.
You can hear more of that conversation on The Record with Mark Maxwell tonight after Sports Plus. Well, today, mothers who've lost their children, no matter how old, gather together in Florissant to heal. At the Palatine Retreat and Conference Center, speakers, musicians, and more put together the first International Bereaved Mother's Day event just 1 week ahead of Mother's Day. One mother told us the pain of losing her son will never really go away, but a way to honor him is to keep on living.
That grief is going to be our constant companion for the rest of our life. And in order to find fulfillment in life and to learn how to balance the joy and the sorrow, We need to, and it's very difficult, learn to walk with that companion.
Organizers hope to start similar programs to include couples, spouses, and siblings going through loss. Meteorologist Gary Frank rejoins us now with that weather first forecast and a little rain tonight.
Rain,
throughout the
nothing severe tonight. We're not having to worry about before we go to bed, but 24 hours from now, that'll be the first round of two, at least, opportunities for severe weather this week. Weldon Spring, Cuba, Hillsborough, rain just about everywhere, and that's all it is, but you'll see the lightning strikes associated with this region-wide are very low, but it's not out of the question that a rumble of thunder may wake you up. But even as we look at the back edge of some of this rain, from Ironton to Belgrade, Potosi, a little further north, you'll see where this is slowly stretching. The heaviest on the Illinois side, even south of Mount Vernon, but you'll see where most of this system is pushing off, and that's what we're going to see this entire area push off to the northeast. So we're kind of on the northern edge of that. Temps still at 68 right now in St. Louis, 60 otherwise. It'll cool down after that rain, and watch how this gradually pushes away. 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, you'll see, and then by 6, 7, 8 o'clock, it's mainly on the Metro East. We'll start to see some clearing on the Missouri side. This is out of here pretty quickly. If you're worried about some sort of significant rain, I think most of this on the Metro East, a ½ an inch or less, especially on the Illinois side, but otherwise under a 1/10 of an inch. I think most of us are going to see a ½ of an inch or less, with areas around noon in the Metro East gone, and then temps in the mid to upper 70s. Now, it's this system that is going to be responsible for our severe weather. We can see that it's spinning. What does that mean for us? Well, this is a pretty strong system that's carrying a lot of wind and a lot of energy with it as well. It's going to interact with some of these ingredients that are in place. Now, our severe weather outlook for Monday doesn't look all that significant, but Wichita, Oklahoma, they're going to be dealing with significant severe weather with the potential for long track tornadoes. But as storms develop along this line, you'll notice our colors get a little more friendly, marginal risk. However, it more has to do with the timing. And then Tuesday, we're away from that. Does that mean we're avoiding this severe weather? Well, really, we have to break it down because it has to do with the timing of this. This storm system is moving in the middle of the night. And then while this line of storms is likely going to fall apart and not be as strong, it still may hold together to get a few severe thunderstorm warnings with 40 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts or a brief weak tornado in the middle of the night, 3, 4, 5 o'clock, right when Anthony joins you Tuesday morning. So that's why it's going to be important to pay attention in the middle of the night. That moves out, we're in pretty good shape. That's our first weather alert day. Very early morning storms. Wind is probably the main threat. It just depends on how those storms stay together overnight. But the risk on Wednesday, while it's just showing yellow now, will probably change a little bit when you check in with Anthony in the morning, because that is past day 3 that the Storm Prediction Center shows us. Afternoon storm development. We've got a lot of heat, humidity along this front, and storms will develop. I think Wednesday is the all types of severe weather possible day, with threat beginning Wednesday afternoon. 2-inch or greater hail and tornadoes are possible on Wednesday in some sort of area in the region. And I think that's the day that I pay attention to the most, as those are our next weather alert days. Wednesday, the most significant as it looks like right now. That's something our team will continue to update you on throughout the next few days as we prepare for the middle of the week, and then it's quieter after that.
I'm Paul Cook, your traffic guy on Today in St. Louis, and we're on the move. It's spring, and everyone is out and about enjoying the weather, and that means a lot more traffic and possibly more accidents. It's the perfect time to talk driver safety. Dallas Thompson from the Missouri State Highway Patrol shares what to do if you get an offender bender.
We have the adage of steer it and clear it. So if you're getting a minor fender bender and your vehicles are drivable, remove them from the roadway, even if you can get to the next exit and get off the roadway, get on the off ramp, stop there, or maybe pull into a gas station there, and then you can call for authorities to come and take that report.
Now, let's say your foot gets a little heavy and you're pulled over for speeding. What's the correct thing to do?
Always pull to the right. The law says you yield to the right. A lot of interstates, you may have a large inside shoulder, and a lot of times people will be in that left lane, they'll just pull to the left shoulder. That's a very dangerous place to be, because that's the fast lane that people are passing with. So we don't want to put our officers in that area having to get out of the vehicle and reach and come up and talk to you. So always yield over to the right, even if you have to slowly get over 4 or 5 lanes on an interstate.
And here's the hot tip, so there's no guessing.
If you don't feel you're comfortable where you are, you can turn your emergency flashes on, so we at least know that you recognize we're there and we're trying to stop you, and you can slow down and just slowly get to where we're going. But we know you're not trying to run from us.
Yep, hazard lights. I've never done that one. My best advice, watch your speed and stay safe out there. Paul Cook, 5 on your side.
Coming up, one of the biggest fundraisers of the year in Forest Park, how hundreds of people raised thousands of dollars to fight neuromuscular diseases. Hundreds of people were in Forest Park today to support the Muscular Dystrophy Association at their annual MDA Muscle Walk. This is one of the biggest fundraisers of the year to support the people in our area fighting against more than 40 different neuromuscular diseases. I was honored once again to be the MC, and I got to talk to the folks who call this day one of the most important of the year.
The Muscular Dystrophy Association is like the top. They raise the most money for this disease, and I think that more research needs to be happening and more breakthroughs need to happen, and I'm just so excited about what I've seen so far.
Amber's son Holden has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, one of the most challenging. They raised tens of thousands of dollars today, and we'll tell you more about that at our annual MDA Show of Strength. That's on Labor Day weekend out at Grant's Farm once again. A special member of the St. Louis Zoo family passed away last night. For the past 2 decades, Little Joe, a western lowland gorilla, called St. Louis home. According to the zoo, he'd been undergoing treatment for heart disease, and the staff believes that's what caused his death at 26 years old. The zoo says he'll be remembered for his grumpy face and his love of people watching. Some festive fun in Florissant, how one of the biggest parties in North County celebrated its 62nd year. Just a few hours ago, North County wrapped up a weekend of Valley of Flowers fun, and today's parade was the centerpiece of this event. We were there. The 5+ bus was among some of the many vehicles participating in the parade this afternoon. The parade route made its way down Parker Road to New Florissant and through the city of Florissant. And there you have it. 5 on your side at 10. Start your day with Today in St. Louis. That begins at 4 a.m. And now, here's Frank Cusimano with Sports Plus.